Hi, my name is Jeff Pagano, and welcome to the Harpin On Rugby podcast. Joining me this week is someone back for his 20th cap. Welcome back to Mr. J Long.
Hey Jeff, thanks for having me. It's great to be back on.
Great having you back on, indeed. Even for a match like this. But anyway, listen, we can delay with small talk, I suppose, but we might as well get on with it. Turn our attention to that feature match of the week. We start with our usual 80-word summary of how things went. Benetton edged Leinster 29-26 after Jacob Umaga's last-minute penalty settled a dramatic contest in Treviso. Leinster scored four tries through Conor O'Tiernig, Josh van der Flair, Jemison Gibson-Park and Kieran Frawley, but Benetton's pace and maul pressure kept them in touch. Replacement hooker Nicholas Gasparini struck twice, with Ignacio Mendy and Alessandro Garbisi also crossing. Leinster led late, yet repeated penalties invited pressure, allowing Umaga to land that decisive kick at the death. Now, obviously, we'll be going into a little bit more detail than that. And to start us off this week, Jay, you want to talk about how all the chopping and changing in the Leinster lineup, especially the pack, can cost us in matches like this.
Yeah, I think this is the kind of perfect example of a case where I wouldn't say anyone in particular played badly, but we had seemed to have 15 players who are playing independently rather than a team that's performing to the sum of its parts. Kind of in seasons past, we would have had a pretty solid core, maybe 30 players that there'd be some iteration of week to week, and maybe about 80% of those guys we picked from day one to week one to week two, and obviously some bigger changes going from domestic to European competitions. But I think that the kind of level of depth we've had to visit this season in particular probably would only have seen some of the sides in seasons past and say in the South Africa tour, but some of those names now that have really become the kind of cornerstone of Leinster's season with the level of injuries and Lions tours in Ireland, really, like the JJ Kennys, the Deanies, like even Tommy O'Brien to a certain extent is starting to feature far more than he did. Now I know that was injury, but like all these kind of new guys coming in and people playing week to week, in their individual careers will pay dividends. But in terms of kind of team performances, it really has led to just a kind of overall lack of cohesion and lacking that bit of polish, the 5%, or the killer edge that we've kind of seen that Leinster have in seasons past. Like some of the decisions, but they're not in the moment. I didn't think they were particularly bad, but I mean, like Frawley at 15 this week, he had a fine game, right? But I think Hugo has looked absolutely stellar since he came back from injury. Like, is that a change we really need to make? Could we really not have afforded to have Ronan Kelleher play again this week and do 20 minutes off the bench to give us his oomph rather than Gus McCarthy? Nothing against Gus McCarthy. He had a fine game, but I mean, at this stage of the season, do we really need to give Gus McCarthy minutes rather than getting the points in what was really a kind of a vital chance that we didn't think we'd have 2 weeks ago after a really good performance in Ulster? Like, we know why we're doing it. We're managing minutes, and we have a big game next week, but we've been here before where we've made these arguments last season and the season before that and the season before that, and these games leading up to big tournament games where, like last year, where we fell over next week at this stage in the European Championships. But like, do we really need these level of changes? I think it was more than 10 changes going from Ulster, like a really solid, possibly best 40 minutes of rugby Leinster have played the first half versus Ulster last week. Did we really need to change that level? Did we really need to bring Rieko Ioane back into the centres this week? There's several decisions that he hasn't really worked there. He's been okay on the wing. Like, why do we need to develop Rieko Ioane in the centre for us? Like, Henshaw has barely played. So in the overall span of the season, all of these small little decisions, it just looks like a group of lads who aren't totally comfortable playing with each other. And I know we're saying it's been a biblical level of injury this season. There's no getting around that. So there's a large amount of chopping and changing is out of our hands, right? But as I said, some of those decisions are off our own back, and we've kind of paid the price. And even in terms of like the decision at the end to not kick off the pitch, it feels to me like there's just lads trying to prove themselves in a situation where we didn't need, Fintan Gunn and Sam proving themselves at that moment, and then maybe they felt it because maybe Sam didn't think he's been picked the last couple of weeks. Maybe the guys thought they had to go win the game. when the decision in that moment was to get it off the park. It's hard to put your finger on. And I think the other side of it is the level of shopping and changing. As I said, some of it is understandable, but I think this season's probably a lot more costly to us because last season we had a Snyman and we had a Geordie Barrett who, whatever kind of hole we had, Geordie seemed to fill for us week on week, like nearly to the point of we needed a tight head, throw Geordie and he'll do a job. Our NIQs haven't fired this season like that. We've really had to, and it's kind of the local players who have had to step up and fill those holes, which in itself is fantastic. But we're playing these guys quite a large sum of money to fill in the gaps when the big names are away on holiday or away on duty. And it really hasn't worked out that way. And I think I probably speak for myself and a lot of kind of Leinster fans that it's been a frustrating season. And this is one of these performances that we went from the first half where it looked like we very probably were in for a bonus point win, but those little 5% didn't click. And we let several opportunities pass. It was messy. It was sloppy. The game probably should have been done by halftime. And that situation went into when the bench came on. There was guys made some mistakes like Deeney and Conor O'Tiernan had great games, but they both gave costly penalties away in a game that we really needed the points for. I mean, not to mention them all, right? But I mean, even outside that, they're young players. I'm not going to blame them for that. But then into the last 10 minutes, we've gone from a game where we think we're in for a bonus point win, and now we're just hoping for a draw, and we can't even manage that. So that's not the Leinster that we've been used to seeing, and there's more than a reason for that than personnel. It's how the personnel has been managed, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we were just saying, I had Rich Mifsud on last week, and we did an extra bonus chat about just basically the challenge that are faced by clubs every season of integrating their players back in after the Six Nations and how to feed them back in, and how that's a challenge in itself, and it's a challenge that's unique to Northern Hemisphere rugby. In the Southern Hemisphere, their competitions tend to start and finish, and the coaches are used to having their squads together for the entirety of a competition. That just doesn't happen here. And we've got two competitions here. So you're gauging, should we prioritize the URC this week or the Champions Cup next week? That's on top of the Six Nations. It's just it's a big kerfuffle for every club. But when you're a club like Leinster, who every year are going to pretty much be confident they'll be competing on both fronts, it's an even bigger challenge. And I know, you can hear all the other fans going, "Oh, boo hoo!" But it is something that Leinster do have to deal with. And I mean, personally, I know it's easy for us to say it, but that's what we're here for. The thing that seems to make the most sense is that, like, once the Six Nations is over, obviously it's an attritional competition. The players do need a couple of weeks break, but once they're back, we really should be playing our strongest team week in, week out to the end of the season. I think if the Ulster game last week showed us anything, it showed us that we actually do have a lot of options at different positions. Well, we struggled in some like tight head, but the thing is, if that's the case, if you know you have the options, then fine, you have them. They've already played some matches this season. It's not like they haven't had any minutes. So play your strongest teams. If, God forbid, they get injured, you've got people who can step up. I mean, that's the way to do it. But we're maybe we're overthinking it. Classic case of overthinking it. You mentioned Geordie Barrett. What's the one game we needed him in the center last season? And we just, for whatever reason, we decided to leave him on the bench. And there's the 2 points we were short right there. But anyway, no, it's an ongoing issue every season with Leinster. I've always said, and I said it in this the video with Rich as well. Of all the nations, of all the Six Nations under this weird European Northern Hemisphere stop-start season system, Ireland has managed that the best. I think I think we've done a really good job of catering to the system, but it's still not easy to find the sweet spot. It's a shame we have to. But it's just a difficult one. But I think, like you say, I think the best way to do it is just when you get to a certain stage of the season, there's the top 8 positions to play for or knockout games coming up. Just play your best team, and then if the next guy needs to step up, all well and good.
Yeah, well, like we need, like especially this season. Like I mean, some of the players have come back, and even Leo said it a couple of weeks ago that it was the first time that everyone's pretty much been in camp fully firing and what you would imagine would be a kind of Champions Cup starting 15. Like that to me says then get them playing together week in week out. Get them that kind of simpatico relationship going on. Like even like looks fabulous players like Jimmy O'Brien and Jamie Osborne. They made a break down the wing during this game, and they just weren't on the same page. And we're less than a week away from the Champions Cup semi-final. It's just not the ideal state. So what I don't understand, all across the pitch, there's those relationships that need to be built in this season of all seasons, and we just don't seem to be taking those opportunities to do it now that we have the players available finally.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned Dini and Oternik. I mean, the way we selected this team, we were asking them to play 80 minutes. You know, we went with a 5-3 bench and we went with two back rowers on the bench. And they've been playing all season, but generally there'd be a Joe McCarthy or a James Ryan or a Snyman at some stage with them in the second row. They're not kind of used to playing together. So they're, you know what I mean? They're both capable players and they both had their high moments. I mean, O'Tierney got a try. But like you say, they make those critical mistakes, and over the course of 80 minutes, especially if it's going to be tight towards the end, I just think we took a gamble on this one. We might have thought it was an easy win, I suppose. I mean, Benetton having a great season. We'll talk about them a bit later, but it just didn't transpire. And I think just the best way to do it is to just pick your best team as often as you can.
Yeah, like I absolutely agree. Rest one of those guys. Put Cheese on. Put Big Joe on there. Even on the bench, you know, yeah. Big Joe. Imagine bringing Joe McCarthy onto that pitch in the last 20 minutes of that game. Like we couldn't make a carry for love nor money. The guys were wrecked. Benetton were fabulously aggressive and physical, but Joe McCarthy would have made meters in that game. And again, it's a decision that we've decided to protect Joe McCarthy, who I'm sure didn't want to be protected if I ask him. It cost us. There's no other way of saying it. It did cost us yesterday, you know.
I mean, for what we're used to, that was actually a strong 23 for a trip to Treviso at this end of the season. I mean, we're used to. We would have sent pretty much the academy team there in the past, especially if it was earlier in the season. Maybe not so much this stage, but still, you lose a game by 3 points, and you say where do you find those 3 points? And I think that this is pretty clear. If we be able to put on our full team, I think that 3 points could be found. I think that's probably the way to look at it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, elsewhere in the URC, Munster overpowered Ulster 41-14, dominating collisions and finishing clinically to stay firmly in the playoff hunt. Connacht battled hard in Johannesburg, but fell 33-21 to the Lions, undone by second-half pressure despite flashes of attacking sharpness. Elsewhere, Cardiff edged Ospreys 24-21 in the Welsh Derby, Edinburgh beat the Sharks 33-28, and Dragons snatched a 19-18 win over Zebra. The Stormers went to the top of the log after crushing Glasgow 48-12, while the Bulls ground out a 23-21 victory away to Scarlets. Leinster's defeat drops us to fourth on the table with 2 home matches left to play, including the now third-place Lions, who are up next in 2 weeks. But now we must return to the Stadio di Domingo, and before we harp any more on what went wrong for Leinster, and trust me, we do have more, I think it's only fair to first throw some love to our host, Benetton, because despite having a poor season overall by their standards, they were really up for this one, Jay.
Yeah, I mean, deserving winners, right? I think that I just have to say that first and foremost, after complaining about what Leinster did wrong, it takes 2 to tango, and Benetton really brought a fantastic performance. I mean, off the back of a pretty disappointing performance against Munster last week, and at the end of a pretty, I would say, disappointing season for them in general, it was a fantastic performance, right? They played like a team who wanted to reward the fans in the last home game of the season. I think some big names. I think Menoncello is moving on, so it's probably his last time in a Benetton. So they put it up for the fans. The fans were loving it. It seemed like they were kind of doing that kind of Benetton chant the entire night, which is fantastic, right? You can't begrudge them what a fantastic performance it was. They were so physical, unbelievable line speed, and they had a plan against for how they wanted to play against us. You could see it, and they executed it very well. I thought, Jacob Umanga and Garbisi played really, really well. Obviously, Garbisi took his try early on very, very well, and Jacob Umanga was prolific off the boot, kind of ice in his veins to snatch a big scalp for them in the last game of the season. at home. Like Michele Romero, what a legend he is in general, right? He plays with his heart in his sleeve. And then Zuliani, I thought was fantastic. I have no idea how he kept Harry Bourne from scoring that try in the first half, but he did. So those guys this was a final to them. They absolutely went after us physically at the breakdown, really aggressive line speed. And then Gasparini, when he came on, what an absolute maul demon! Like his two maul tries were fantastic. Like the first one was from 3 kilometers out, and they just marched us back. It was poor D on our side, and to the point that we actually started throwing Sirocco up because we knew we couldn't match them on the ground, which was worrying. But yeah, full credit to them. Absolutely fantastic performance, and I don't begrudge them a second of it. Like you could see what it meant to them on the final whistle, and fair play to them. A really, really fantastic performance.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the performance you expect from Benetton. I mean, when I was doing the preview show, I did some research on them, and I actually didn't realize. I knew they hadn't had a great season. I didn't realize how bad it was. They were already out of playoff contention. They got a bit unlucky against Exeter a couple of weeks ago, I think, in their quarterfinal. But I mean, overall, they've been just too many losses. It's not where they expect to be. And but this is, of course, they saved it for us. I mean, they figured last home game of the season, Menincello's moving on. The home crowds give them a final night, and literally from the first minute, they were running out of their 22, and they were on our try line within seconds. Like, I mean, it was they really it's a classic situation if they wanted it more, which ironically is what we were saying about Leinster the previous week up in Belfast. So it was a performance that really got us from the start. But we having conceded the first try, we got back in it and we got the lead back, but it was almost like we still got complacent, and they were just there to take their chances. And once they got a penalty, that second half, once they got a penalty, it's almost like once they got a scrum in the middle of the field, it's like, oh, they're going to be on our line in just a couple of minutes. They win a penalty, and then they'd have that killer maul that we could not find an answer to. And we forged this 19-5 lead, which we could have had before the break as well. We had a chance to score just before the break, but we screwed up a lineout just at the crucial moment. Our lineout's been really good, but just that one, there was a total misunderstanding. Jack Conan jumped, and then they threw, and I don't think anyone quite knew what the call was. But a lot of times you give teams those chances and they just don't take them. But Benetton were just there to make full advantage of everything we did wrong.
Yeah, they didn't take no for an answer, did they? I mean, they at no point, even after in the grand scope of their season, I mean, to go and take down Leinster in a very cool and collected way that they did. Like, even when we pulled 2 scores ahead, they didn't look like they were overawed at all. Not to say that they should be. No, Leinster don't have any divine right to win a game before anybody types in the comment section. But
they'll type it anyway.
They'll type anyway. But I mean, it was so impressive. Fair play to them. It was really calm and collected, and they put it up to the fans. Fantastic.
Absolutely. Okay. All right. Well, let's go back to Leinster and get maybe a bit more specific about the areas in which that we were falling short. And I think the one that you rightly noticed more often than not that first half in particular was it's just basic accuracy. I mean, I learned. I watched it first on TG Cahir, and I learned a new phrase from Osgailga. Out the back door in Irish is apparently out the back door. And the thing about those are passes that we rely on now. It's a specific way of going through the motions. Is very, very difficult to defend, assuming that out the back door pass goes to a Leinster player, and it just wasn't happening. It was finding grass more often than not, almost.
Yeah, I mean, this is more of it's just a grinds my gears thing where we've already talked about the kind of chopping and changing impact and accuracy. This is Leinster bread and butter stuff that the guys are running day in, day out. Every single player knows the system. Every single player knows how to do that kind of the trademarks Johnny Sexton loop around thing out the back. And the accuracy and the amount of good opportunities, particularly in that first half, that we just squandered. Not even knocking the ball on, which we had plenty of those, right? I mean, Tommy forced an offload in what looked like a nailed-on try position. There was a really crap knock-on pass to Ed Bourne in the red zone. Again, a pass that shouldn't have been thrown. Like, as you mentioned, whatever that line out was before halftime, and all that stuff is awful, right? But what really killed me was when we were really in kind of flow state attack, and then somebody would throw that pass that just found grass behind 5 or 6 other Leinster players, and we don't even have to lose possession, but you've lost that 1-2 seconds that you've created with your with your harsh carry up the middle, get out to width. You've created a bit of space, but that space is gone a second or two later, and we've spoiled it by dishing it on the ground. And all they have to do is fly hack through, and it becomes a foot race. Now, Tommy did fantastic, clear up one of those in the first half, but it's not Leinster. And I said, like, the chopping and changing is probably part of it, right? But I do feel like we've lost sharpness there in whatever way we're running our drills, and it's costing us. Like, I don't know how many times I've seen, say, Joe McCarthy or something like that make a massive carry and then spill it in contact kind of unnecessarily. Like, it's something has changed in our contact work that we're spilling in an awful lot. I know they're trying to open it up to the offload, the kind of Snyman effect, but we're killing an awful lot of gilt-dead opportunities. And then the other type of accuracy for me, which is the real one, was kind of accuracy of thought, right? Where, like, the last play of the game, it was 79 minutes. We have a penalty, and we lose the game. Like, we've lost that game. Like if that's the worst type of accuracy. That's people on the pitch not understanding what's important in that moment, and what's important in that moment was 3 points and not 2 points. Get into the sheds and take the draw. Right. I mean, that was accuracy. Yeah. That's game time mind accuracy, and we didn't have it when it counted most yesterday, and it really cost us.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I took down the times that we rewarded that penalty at 78:57. So it takes a few seconds, put it into touch. The line out, the throw for the line out was 79:39, right? And we won the line out. Now, I'd be all for maybe a couple of little snipes. Just have a little go a couple of times just to see what's on, just to see maybe the tired Benetton tacklers are tired or whatever. But for God's sake, when it gets to 81-41, which is when the penalty was given. Obviously, he was given for Osborne for a illegal clear-up, but I have a feeling it would have been a holding penalty anyway if he hadn't have done it. He was pretty much latched on, and Osborne saw that. But it was way, way, way too many. You're going nowhere at the halfway line. Doesn't he? Even when you're not in that situation, you kick the damn thing anyway. After all those phases, you're going nowhere. You know what I mean?
In our half, like it wasn't. We weren't even in there. Like it was.
Exactly.
We weren't
outside their 22, maybe. But you know, Mac has been kicking. He's been kicking touchline conversions. Those 2 Maul tries were at the touchline. Maga was putting him over in his sleep, like. So you know that he's going to nail it. And we were driven back to the 10-meter line. Being driven back, that's another reason to kick it out of play. It just doesn't make sense. And one last point on the accuracy point, and this ties into something you said earlier. Rico, not a 13. Yeah. We can talk. I don't care what goddamn color his hair is, but he's not a.
I do. It's awful. Not that color.
Yeah. But still. I should refine that. He's not a Leinster 13, the way we want to play now. We are playing a style that what we want more often than not, we want to get it quickly into the wide channels. They are doing lightning speed through the hands passes and they're relying on it. And it looks amazing when it happens. But I just think that mentality just goes against his DNA. The way we knew when he came, he had a reputation of not passing. That's the one thing he just was known not to do. And it's like we're asking him just to completely reverse his, and that works for us. There's a lot of teams that mentality works for, because you want your 13 crashing up the middle, but that's not the way we're playing. And it's just from this, maybe on the wing, if the ball gets to him on the wing, he's shown he can do well, even in maybe URC knockouts, maybe later in the season. But I think that 13 jersey, I'd rather, if Ringer isn't available, maybe Henshaw, Hugh Cooney, maybe, even Hugh Cooney was playing AIL last week, but I'd still rather have someone who's more attuned to this Leinster way of playing. But then anyway, listen, no, the accuracy and the game management was seriously lacking throughout. But anyway, let's find one positive note. Dan Sheehan.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't. No, I mean, I was trying to pick the topics for today, And immediately, even watching it last night, as he made his like second break, I said, "Okay, I'm gonna have to talk about Dan." Then I watched it again today, and it was just fantastic. He's such a key player. Like is there's nothing. It's one of the best sights in the world. Dan Sheehan run down a rugby pitch. He's just such a freak of an athlete, and he seems to have that rugby IQ. That puts him in those places. Like pretty much every, in my mind, he had a key part to play in pretty much every single point Leinster scored yesterday. I mean, he did his basics jobs, and this is what you need from a player like that, right? He doesn't need to be the rock star the whole time. Like for Josh's try, he nailed his darts, right? Perfect ball in the middle, sets up the dummy maul, and it's a perfect try, right? Josh scores right off the training paddock, and Dan doesn't overplay, right? He did his fair share of grunt for the Conor O'Tiernan try, right? He mucked in with the rest of the lads. Again, didn't overplay, knew his role, does it well, does the basics well, is bread and butter. And then comes the other stuff, like for the Jameson Gibson Park try, where Jameson Gibson Park, fantastic pass to Dan, but the line Dan picks, and the distance he picks it out, like there's two parts of that where you have to have the rugby intelligence to know that's the good line, and you have to be able to, one, have the confidence to back yourself to go alone, potentially get turned over if you get picked over. But then you just have to have the freak kind of physical athlete where he has that speed to make it work. And James Gibson Park has basically a perfect trail 9 run in off the back of it. And it was fantastic. And they're the kind of moments you want to see from players to kind of grab the game by the scruff when it was still kind of nitty and gritty at the start of the second half. And then again, for not even once as good, he does it effectively the same thing again for Kieran Frawley's try. Another fantastic run, nearly makes the whole distance himself. And we get advantage, and Fintan Gunn flings a pass out to Frawley, who dots down. But yeah, I mean, he's a really special player. He's an asset to the club. I mean, if we didn't have a Caelan Doris, I think we'd have a pretty clear captain in Dan Sheehan, in my opinion. He kind of embodies everything you want. He does not like to lose, doesn't like to be taken off the pitch. And he has a really good way of talking to the refs and leading people. And he's coming into form at the pointy end of the season after a kind of, I guess, slow start, a bit of a hangover from the Lions, but he's really coming back to Magic Dan Sheehan that we really need at this stage. And that's what Ronan Keller kind of coming into his own as well. It's nights like last night to remind you that Dan Sheehan is really, he's just a special player. He's a fantastic and arguably probably the best hooker in the world. Sorry, South African Marks fans, but yeah, there we are.
They can say what they like on their own pods, and I'm sure they do. The thing about that, like Leinster's try, we've already talked about the accuracy of the game management, but it is concerning. 4 tries. The first 2 relied heavily on penalties. We did well once we got to the 20. Once we got to the 5-meter line, we were fine. We could finish the tries. We were very good at that, especially, Gibson Park. You have that. But we needed penalties to get there. And then in the second half, for those last 2 tries, we needed Dan to do his thing. I mean, like I said, one of those lines, that line you talk about, he started from pretty much his own try line almost, it seemed like. You see him starting to run, and he just picks the pass perfectly, and he's gone. He's an amazing carrier of the ball. I'd say he's one of the things he is best in the world at, outside the normal hooker duties, is the 5-meter tap. I think that he's just got this ability of he gets you to the 1 meter line more often than not. Somehow, you judge people. They try these fancy moves and they often get stopped back beyond the 5-meter line. But he gets you. You're right on the line, and you're punching. It starts you off in that pressure situation really well. It's great, but this was we really needed him in that second half. That's for sure. Okay, so we'll move on to a different position. You spoke about Jamison Gibson Park, and obviously at Leinster we need options when he's not available. And Luke McGrath has been in sort of a more than able deputy up to now, but of course he's moving on. We saw Fintan Gunn come on for a prolonged cameo. He came on, I think, at 20 minutes left, and so that was that. But just didn't seem to go the way it was. And like you said, there was that kind of confusion towards the end. How do you see us going after Luke is gone?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's generally thought of, but it's a really appreciably large changing of the guard there, right? I mean, Luke McGrath has been a massive part of what we've done over the last couple of years. I mean, if you remember, we were all kind of terrified when Jameson Gibson Park had to cry off the URC final last year, but come with the hour, come with the man. Luke had a fantastic game. So that's a whole lot of, and to bring things to more recently, I think yesterday is a draw if Luke McGrath's on the bench. I think Luke McGrath gets that ball off the park. Almost as soon as we get pinned back into our own half, that ball's gone, in my opinion. That's the level of kind of clarity of thought and decision making that's walking out the door with Luke. And obviously, I wish him well. Like go get that bag, Luke. But I mean, you have James Gibson Park, who's elite, and Lukey has been solid to even probably pull it harshly. He's been a fantastic servant. But there's kind of coming into a kind of really interesting battle now between kind of Fintan Gunn and Cormac Foley. And the one that got away, probably Ben Murphy, maybe, worth mentioning that he was on the list for a while for the number 2 spot. And if you think about James Gibson Park's age profile, this is a spot for starting Leinster scrum half in the not too distant future, right? I mean, we won't have Gibson Park for, we hopefully have it for a couple more seasons. I really, really hope we do. But I mean, we're not talking about 6 more years of James Gibson Park here. We're talking maybe 2 or 3 more seasons, probably tops, right? So it's a really important kind of couple of months for those 2 young men, especially next season. Like we've seen a fair bit of Fintan Gunn. I like what I see. It kind of like early Casey probably has aspects of his game he needs to work on. Like there was a notable difference in kicking accuracy last night after James Gibson Park came off the pitch. We haven't seen as much of Cormac Foley. Obviously, he went and it did his time with was it Ospreys? I think he did his time with Ospreys, right? But obviously the coaching staff sees something because he hasn't played for Leinster yet, and his contract was announced right when he came back, right? So there's obviously something there that the guys see. So it's a real watch this space kind of moment, right? It feels like it's up for grabs for either of those 2 guys to really make the number 2 jersey their own, and that number 2 jersey will very quickly become the number 1 scrum half jersey for Leinster. And you're right in the shop window for Ireland then, if that's the case, right? So it's going to be a very interesting battle between those 2 guys, and I think it's going to be very exciting to watch.
Well, it's massive shoes to fill because I mean, when Gibson Park was away, more often than not, Luke McGrath was our captain. We were relying on him for so much more than just the scrum half duties. So it's a big step up. I mean, Fintan Gunn. I mean, he looks great. He got his try in the URC final last season, and he's looked really good in patches. I think one thing he might need to work on in the off season is maybe being able to do box kicks off his right foot. I think he's very, very limited with the left foot, and you just see him. He's doing it when he's not getting the distance he needs. When he's forced to do it off his left, it's easier said than done, but it is something he can work on. And you want to have work-ons this stage of your career. It's just like you say, there's 2 youngsters coming up into a big position, and we're going to be relying on them as starters. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I mean, you never know. There's NIQ spots coming up as well. You don't know what way we're going to go that way. We usually know by now. It's very unusual to find stuff so late in the season not knowing what's coming down the pipe. But it's definitely a challenge for them, and it's something we'll have to look at for sure. But listen, we need to put this game behind us. We're going to start talking about Toulon next week, but I think we've said pretty much all I was going to say. It was a very disappointing finish, but it wasn't just the finish. It was there was several points throughout that game where we could have put it to bed, and we just weren't able to for all the reasons we mentioned. Now this week was a little bit different than usual. I had a family event. I wasn't able to watch the game live, and just a couple of the normal things. I forgot to put up my Facebook post to get the comments on our Facebook page. But what I do have is I have a couple comments from our WhatsApp group. And we usually share them on Substack as well. I wasn't able to do that either, but I'll share a couple of comments from the Full-Time Whistle on our Substack group. We had David Cordio, who said there were so many moments where we did all the hard work and were inches away, and it was only fitting that the last pass that cost us. And Kieran Duffy said, honestly, not good enough from Leinster. It's been a season of not waking up, sleepwalking. We've had enough kicks up the arse this season to switch on. We have to learn from this ahead of next week. Do you agree, or would you have said the same thing a different way? Well, if you want to get involved in the conversation, just head to our Facebook page at the Full-Time Whistle after Leinster and Ireland matches. We'll have them back up and running next week, and feel free to leave your thoughts. Okay, well, listen, we're going to leave it there for now. Many thanks to Jay for joining us. We're looking forward to having you back on again soon.
Thanks, William, Jeff. Thanks, guys.
No problem. And as ever, be sure to stay tuned to Harpin on Rugby on all the socials during the week, starting with our bonus chat posting on YouTube on Tuesday, where we'll be harping on the challenge posed by Toulon next week. And then our 80 plus column, where we try to look at the wider rugby world. And that posts every Wednesday over on Substack. In the meantime, stay safe, everyone. Slán.